I would like to talk to you about Rinascimento Americano, the American Renaissance. Do you know this image? Does anybody know this image? This is the Columbian Exposition in Chicago in 1893. In 1893, some of the top architects, painters, and sculptors from the U.S. gathered together to help create the Columbian Exposition. Columbus. Christopher Columbus. I know we don't talk about him anymore. Columbian Exposition in Chicago. Daniel Burnham was the leader. Charles Follen McKim and Augustus Saint-Gaudens, the great sculptor, along with others, were part of the team. They had an all-star team. What they created changed the face of American art, architecture, and cities for the next 40 years. And these works are today considered among the finest of American masterpieces. At the beginning, there was a feeling that they were reviving something that had been done before. The sculptor, Augustus Saint-Gaudens, exclaimed after the first planning session that this is the greatest meeting of artists since the 15th century. And I'm hoping for that to happen again. This is the greatest meeting of artists since the 15th century. In 1893 began the movement that we call the City Beautiful, which is otherwise known as the American Renaissance. The American Renaissance produced masterpieces that you all know: the Boston Public Library, the New York Public Library, Penn Station, San Francisco Opera House, the Macmillan Plan in Washington, D.C., that is the Mall, Rock Creek Parkway. A lot of stuff in this great city are directly inspired and by the same people who did the Columbian Exposition. The train station here, the Supreme Court, many of the federal buildings, and countless other civic buildings in all of our 50 states. My goal as an architect is to promote a renaissance of culture and the arts. We can do that in our home lives, in our children's educations, and in our churches. We can educate our friends and relatives. However, if you're an architect or an artist, I believe you can be the most effective in the revival of the arts directly through your craft. To revive the arts is to breathe new life in them and to serve the renaissance of culture. Now, revive and renaissance are similar, aren't they? To bring life. Renaissance, to bring new birth, bring back. Some of you, this is Carolyn in my office designing something, and then some of you may know we commissioned a ballet last summer. Being an architect, I can do those kind of things. How do we foster a new renaissance? To begin with, we need to practice our craft very well to the best of our abilities. To do that, we need to believe in our craft, whether it is painting, poetry, ballet, architecture, sculpture, as something uniquely important and crucial for the renewal of culture. You have to believe that your art can help culture, maybe in a small way. Maybe architecture is a small thing. Maybe ballet is a medium thing. Whatever that you do, you have to see how it can impact the world. But we also need to see that our art, our individual art, is part of a greater whole, and that we are only a small part of the answer. Rather than letting the reality of our smallness make us downcast, it should make us aware of all the other artists who are pushing the culture in the direction of light. Artists have an important part to play in this new renaissance by practicing your art, yet even more so if you're willing to become part of the whole. We are each like soldiers at the Battle of Vienna, who against a much larger and greater foe become victorious by joining with others under the leadership of a Jan Sobieski. Each of us are like athletes, and we need to strengthen our whole bodies, mind, eyes, ears, feet, and hands. Perhaps you're a sculptor, and so the writing of a novelist doesn't seem to interest you. Yet I tell you that the success of the novelist strengthens what you do. The true success that we seek after, and which is what I hope for you, is not monetary or personal success, which is fine, but it's ultimately fleeting. The renaissance of culture, the revival of faith, and the beautification of the world. That's what Renaissance means. These three are, I adjudge, the highest goals of the artist. Let me begin by suggesting the scenario for architecture and why you, as a wordsmith, a composer, Mark, a ballerina, or a patron should care about the restoration of architecture. This is because architecture is the mother of the arts. And a good mother will do anything for the good of her children. Architecture has the greatest impact on us of the arts due to its size, its cost, and the fulfillment of shelter. But it is also the art which rightly accommodates and fosters all the arts. That's the whole point of architecture. It's to foster the other arts. Architecture is the pinnacle of the arts, but only if it incorporates and serves all the others. As Jesus told his apostles, whoever would be greater among you must be your servant. The architect is the servant, mother and servant. Architecture, when classical, consciously provides places for other artists to do their work. Churches, libraries, schools, museums, courthouses, theaters, concert halls, congress halls, and the public piazza all should be provide appropriate places for the arts. Specifically, the buildings are designed to showcase sculptures of great men, paintings of the virtues, inscriptions of poetry or prose, mosaic symbols and saints, images from stories both classic and new, and rooms for performing. When I'm designing a new or used building, kind of a joke, I have to do many things. The best way to think about it is to refer to the Vitruvian triad. Do you know it? Commodity, firmness, and delight, which is firmitas, utilitas, venustas, which is permanence, function, and beauty. Same words. Most of the other arts, with the exception of outdoor sculpture, have limited need for firmitas, firmness, and almost none for utilitas, usefulness. The arts in the classical sense should be pure venustas, beauty. And that's why architecture, with its protective and functional capacities, is the best to house and showcase the other arts. Let me show you a couple of projects that try to incorporate the arts in different ways. New chapel on a college campus, a beautiful fountain, a beautiful welcoming entrance. The upper level with the coat of arms, beautiful window that has stained glass in it. A pine cone welcoming you, some symbols of Christianity. The entrance, I can't even read that. Fides. Oh, you can't read it either. Wow. Those. Oh, it's there. Okay. Fide space sapient. Caritas. Fide space caritas. Faith, hope, and love. So we came up with 3 doors. So what do we do there? What do you use? Faith, hope, and love. You get to pick your door today. I always go through hope, the threshold of hope. Little detail: the name of the school and their mascot, the charger, over the light fixture. And then the narthex, welcoming you, Christian symbols surrounding you. You see a couple there, Alpha and Omega, the fish. We talked about this yesterday, the Ark of the Covenant, and the holy name of Jesus as you go through the narthex, entering towards the nave. The nave itself, with the large limestone Doric columns, leading you towards the altar to the cross, with numerous things there. And we had a chance to do some words there. I'm a big fan of words and inscriptions, even though I believe also how crucial, essential figurative art is. But we had the chance, so we said, well, we have got 10 ovals. What do we do? Well, the 9 fruits of the Holy Spirit plus 1. So here's your caritas. And across from caritas, we added 1, castitas, love and chastity. The back wall with celebratory swags and urns out of wood. The organ loft above, or the loft above. The main altar, the main sanctuary organ, symbols of celebration from the Psalms. I don't know if you can see that up to the right and left. And then the organ with this great inscription from the Psalm, which again I can't read them on my little screen, but you can't either. Boy, that's really bad, Duncan. Laudate eum in cordis et organo. Praise him with strings and pipe, Psalm 150. And then the grand org in the choir loft, which has Sing a New Song to the Lord, for he has done marvelous deeds. And then we have a little day chapel. The donor, actually, this is all they had wanted originally, was just a day chapel, and they ended up giving us like $14 million to build the whole church. When the school said they needed more than just a little day chapel, but here's a little day chapel, and they do use this for adoration, although at the Catholics there's too many of them there. So, but the image, I did this novel thing, which I've always thought about as a crazy idea. It's always a silly idea. Like, think about it, like side altars with a stained glass window. We don't do that, right? Stained glass is not a focus of an altar or an altarpiece. It's not. And I said, well, it's a crazy idea. But this was the situation I thought I should do it. So the altarpiece is a stained glass window to the baptism of the Lord. And then off to the right, there's another window, and it's our protector. Saint Michael the Archangel, defend us in battle. All right. So College Chapel, a classical academy, a new K through 12 classical academy in North Dakota on a large piece of land in a part of town that's growing and being built up, and kind of a, I don't know, kind of a villa, or it's a destination, and serious, beautiful. Over the front door have come that they might have life into the full in Latin. I always like dead languages. I think it's better for people. And they agreed, and so that was good. And then above, I don't know if you can tell, but there's two guys. They both begin with an A, and they're two of the great teachers at a classical academy. One pagan, one Christian. Aristotle and Aquinas. There's a lot of A's. A lot of A's in this room, but there's a lot of A's. But yes, Aristotle and Aquinas. The coat of arms over the big arch, and then a tower celebrating the location, and with a cross. Elementary school, high school with a cross on it. That's interesting, isn't it? And you'll be interested to know what's inside of there. What's inside that school? I don't know. Okay, so here's the lobby with some colonnades leading you directly to the gym, to the dining hall. No, not quite. To the library. So you come in, right to the library. And what we did is we brought some of the other teachers in to the lobby. And here's the busts of some of the great teachers. I think there's about 20 great teachers from the past. We put in 12. No, we had to find only 12 to put in there. And we wanted to have ancients and moderns, and we picked 6 disciplines to put in there. And we had theology at the middle. There's ancient on the left, and let's say Old Testament on the left and New Testament on the right. Can you tell who these guys are? Moses and who's let's say the New Testament, Paul, yeah. And so we had theology at the middle. We had music, Bach and, yes, Tchaikovsky, thank you. So Bach and Tchaikovsky, they're looking across at each other. And we didn't put the names on there because the kids need to figure out who they are. And see this funny looking guy with the big nose, Dad, that's that's Bach, whoever. And we have, who else do we have? We have literature. ancient and modern. Homer and? You're a little too Italian there for me. Let's stick with the local language. Shakespeare, yeah. And we have two scientists. Archimedes, thank you. And a really modern guy. Really modern. Everybody knows him. He's got really cool hair. Yeah, Einstein. Art. Fine art. You guys probably don't care about that. Okay. Fine art. Ancient and modern. Phidias and Michelangelo. Yeah. Michelangelo. He was pretty good. I mean, Da Vinci was good. Michelangelo was pretty good. They're both pretty good, you know. Michelangelo wasn't as good at his flying machines. All right. So anyway, we had two sculptors, 6 busts each, moderns, ancients and moderns, kind of looking across at each other. And that, I was just so thrilled that I could do that. I mean, to do a lobby of a school that does that, that's like, makes me so happy. And, but anyway, the entrance from the outside is on the left, the door to the chapel is to the right. There is an inscription. Again, you can't read it, neither can I, so I have to read it off of here. It's actually a long one. Can you tell? This room's like 35 by 35, so the inscription is, "So then, you are no longer strangers and sojourners, but you are fellow citizens with the saints and members of the household of God, built upon the foundation of the apostles and prophets, Christ Jesus himself being the cornerstone." This school is called Capstone. "In whom the whole structure is joined together, grows into a holy temple in the Lord, in whom you are also built into it for a dwelling place of God in the Spirit." So very architectural about the kids and the teachers and the parents being built together. And the capstone, most importantly. All right, so then we go into the library. We put the library down some stairs so I could get a bigger height. It's all wood, and we've got reading nooks, and we try to come up, again, it was very easy to come up with a list of 14 books that you should put here. Now we don't have names of authors, we actually have names of books, so we're kind of switching it up. And, what's your top 14 books that kids should know about? Well, that's easy. So we had a big list, maybe 80, and we narrowed it down to the best 14, because the others were, just not quite as good. I'm kidding. But it was very hard. But we wanted to go historically, and we went to different time periods, and we went everywhere from, obviously, the Iliad and the Odyssey, you can see, is right there in the center. And we wanted to have different fields of political philosophy as well as theology, and the Divine Comedy for those of you who think Dante was good. But we also have things like Pride and Prejudice and Moby Dick and The Lion, the Witch, and whatever that's called, and War and Peace. So it was fun. And of course, the client's involved in this, but I think what I'm trying to get across is this is part of what we do as architects. We're providing a place for all this. And part of it is the names, it's the sculptures, it's work. We have to be part of this, the culture, and we have to be part of promoting the culture as an architect. I don't have to be an expert at these books. In fact, I've never read any of them. But I have to know that they're worth putting in the library. But I'd like my kids to read them. All right. And so, but this was very fun, and we had 3 windows at the end, and I said, I'm sorry, I'm going to have to knock out one of the windows, because I want something in the library. And I actually had this silly idea of a cover of a book of a boat, and the little children are in the room, and they're talking about the boat, and then they get swallowed up by the water. Voyage of the Dawn Treader. Very plebeian. He says, "Oh, come on, Duncan. This is the headmaster. We can do a lot better than that." And so it's Ulysses on the boat, tying himself to the mast, going to the island of the Sirens so he can hear them and hear how beautiful they are. And he's tempted, but he cannot do anything bad. And so that's what the image is. And we're very excited about that. And the artist, I think, is here. Is he here? Is he still here? He was here yesterday. Jim Langley. So this was just done. It's a really big painting, and very excited about Odysseus. But the headmaster believed this was a great image. It's imaginative, right? It's heroic. It's a challenge. Life is like this, though, right? This is life, and watch out for the sirens, ladies and gents. All right. So this is just a little room, but I thought it was neat that the client wanted to have a commons room or fellowship room for the teachers. They wanted to make it elevated. This is better than any of the classrooms, right? We don't have fireplaces in the classrooms, believe it or not, and or marble or anything. So we have a marble fireplace, and we have some wood pilasters, and it's their lunchroom and fellowship room. And I don't know if you get the joke. I thought it was a little witty of a joke, but it's quia in igne revelabitur, it will be revealed in fire, which is from 1 Corinthians 3:13, where he's talking about works will become manifest for the day, will disclose it, because it will be revealed in fire, and the fire will test what sort of thing we have done. So the importance of our works, and it will be tested in fire, albeit that's all fake fire. As you go upstairs to the high school, we have two founding images. So you're going up and down the stairs. If you're a high school, middle school, high school kid, and on one side we have the founding on Rome on the left. You have the founding of Rome. You have Romulus and Remus. You have the Romulus with the oxen creating the shape of the city, and you have all the greats. All the greats meaning the great people of Rome, good and bad, that are part of the history of Rome, in procession. And on the right, the founding fathers celebrating the sesquibicentennial. They're having a party there, a cocktail party, celebrating the signing of the Declaration and symbolically the Constitution. So this is on the stairways, and then I'm not going to show you the classrooms because they're really, really good, and I wouldn't want to give away my secrets. But at any rate, and then the piece de resistance is at the top of the stairs, the middle of the building, under the roof. You saw the facade went up high. That allowed me to put a chapel up there, a tall chapel, because otherwise the rooms are not that big, and it's a simple room. You don't see a lot right now, but it will reveal itself, and some nice symbols, and it's very square and very austere, but pleasant, a lot of light. And we have some big symbols on the side. I don't know if you can tell what those are. A little bit. You can see the Alpha and Omega again, the Sacred Heart, the some of the tools of the Passion, and then below them, this was very interesting for the kids. Jim Langley wouldn't approve, or none of the artists here would approve, but for the kids, I wanted to do some side altars or side shrines, and that might especially speak to them, it wouldn't speak to you guys because you're all mature, but the parables. So we actually have images of 4 parables on the side: the sower. I don't know why anybody likes the prodigal son, and that kind of stuff. Like for kids, it's for kids. So we thought that was kind of a neat thing to have for the chapel, and the teachers need to hear it too once in a while, But anyway, so that's. I'm very proud of this. A new school with a chapel, at the top. A little bit of art, a lot of bronze busts, and then the high altar is a new commandment I give to you. And it's Jesus washing the feet of his disciples. And that was their idea, that the mandatum, that was their idea to focus on the children doing the, washing the feet, serving others. All right. So, and then I'd like to just, the third project is something we haven't built. We're doing it now, but there's a little shrine in Wisconsin. There's a cardinal that built it many years ago. And he's had a vision for 10 other buildings on the site, and before he dies, he's going to do them all. You watch. He's one of the gutsiest men I know, and this is what we have built up till now. It's a beautiful church. Shrine. Has anybody been there? Couple people? Okay, you didn't like it. All right. And then next to it on the right is the priory for the priests that serve. Right now it's the Norbertines from California are serving the church. And he wanted to put a retreat house, which we're calling the Pilgrim House, there. And we originally were going to put it in the parking lot down below. And you really want to be right there. You really want to be at the church. And so he agreed, and we're building it on the side of the mountain, and it's not cheap. But that's the little retreat house. So there you are, staying at the retreat house, looking onto the church. You know, you're away. You're in the sacred place on the, we call it Tepeyac Hill. It's Our Lady of Guadalupe. And so this is what we're building right now. And it's kind of novel. It's stone like the church, but it's, you know, it's not a church, so it's simpler. But unlike for some reason on the church, we don't have a terrace on the 6th floor, so we put a terrace here, you know, for sitting and sunbathing and, you know, little dinners. There's a couple of balconies overlooking the Mississippi Valley. And the lowest level has like a tiny little convent for 6 nuns that would take care of the retreat house. And it's all connected to the church and also to the priory where the priests live. And kind of the main floor with the 2nd level of arches and the balconies, that's where all the conference rooms are. Kind of like this. They're in this ballpark in terms of size and volume. Not size, they're not quite this long, but they're, you know, kind of feel like this. And we have 3 conference rooms and 1 lobby. And of course, there's words and other things. All right. So here's you enter the Pilgrim House of St. Juan Diego, and this is what you see. There's not a checkout desk. There's a table, and the sister comes and greets you, and you sit down and talk to her. And there's a piano because Mark Nowakowski is staying there, and he's playing his newest piece. And it's a beautiful lobby. It's a beautiful. It's a retreat house. It's a hotel. It's, you know, it's a beautiful place. But what's the art all around us? What's the art above? As you come in, this is what you see. The Battle of Lepanto. That's the first image. And this is we're naming it the Lord's Lobby, and that's where the coloration comes from. Lepanto's right there in the big arch. And then the rondelles, the circles. The Rondelles was a Motown group in the 60s. The rondelles are the great pilgrimage spots in the world. So there's a sketch of the Battle of Lepanto with Our Lady controlling the battle. And you see, so what is that? Where are you doing this, Duncan? But in the left, you can just kind of look into the galleon, and it's Command Admiral Doria from Genoa. And he's working for the Spanish, and he's brought an image of Our Lady of Guadalupe, a little icon that Philip II has given him to take on to this battle. So Our Lady of Guadalupe is there. Our Lady is controlling the battle, and of course it's the greatest sea battle of all time. And with her help, we were victorious, outnumbered, and so on. So the other side of the room has a big fireplace, and we expect this to be used, you know, most of the time all year round. Wisconsin is very nice in January for downhill skiers. And then you see the rondelles again. The fireplace itself, this was interesting. We were trying to figure out what to do with the fireplace, and I love coats of arms. And so it was Benedict XIV, Cura Buntur Omnes, and the thing that, because he's the one who said, non fecit taliter omni natione, which is from the scriptures, and he said that when they presented to him the miracle and the conversions that came out of Our Lady of Guadalupe, and he said, this has not been done for any other nation. That's what he said in response to Our Lady of Guadalupe. So We're bringing him in there. We like to bring in popes and bishops, and also Don Juan and other. Sobieski should come in here sometime. And then the six rondels. Can you guess what this is? Oh, you don't know that one. Okay. How about this? They know that one. In Paris? Okay. So we wanted to surround the room that this is a place of pilgrimage. We wanted to kind of emphasize this is one of the many places of pilgrimage. We have some of the great pilgrimage spots of the world. There's many, 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 but some of the biggies, and we wanted to associate ourselves with that and promote pilgrimage. So then there's two small conference rooms that are dedicated to Our Lady of Fatima and Our Lady of Rue de Bac. And we have paintings being done above again, lunettes or semicircular paintings over the doors that tell those stories. And then the hallway leads to the main room, which is the Tepeyac room, and the room dedicated particularly to St. Juan Diego and to Our Lady of Guadalupe. And there's an image, we're using 4 of the 5 apparitions from from Our Lady's appearance in Mexico. And there's one on the outside of the room. So you see that at the end, and then you see the other 3 in the room. This is the kind of the ballroom, smaller than what we're in now, but it seats about 120 for dinner and about 200 for lectures, and has some views and balconies and so on. But no smoking on the balconies, please, Kathleen. Probably it's okay. Probably it's licit. I'm just kidding. Probably cigars are fine. You know, Monsignors can smoke cigars on the balcony, but nothing else. No vaping. Yeah, it's a joke. But at any rate, so beautiful wood mahogany room for the main lecture room and ballroom, dining room, whatever. And that's kind of a view of that room with some ornate Corinthian architecture and swags. The fun thing about the swags, I don't know if you could notice, but the ones with the paintings next to them, the swags are actually hiding the mechanical grills, the air conditioning and heat and so on. But at any rate, but there's then 3 more apparitions from the story of Our Lady of Guadalupe and Juan Diego over the doors. And then that room will be a little bit like this with technology that works or doesn't work, Kathleen. But it'll have technology like this. It's the same idea as what you have right there. And when you outgrow DC or get tired of the good food here and the low prices, you could come to Wisconsin and have a conference. Yeah. All right. So here's some early sketches for the interior 3 apparitions, and you see the second time that she appears to Juan Diego and tells him, "No, I want you to build a little house here. I want you to build the church here. Ask the bishop." And of course, the bishop doesn't want to talk to him about it. And then the second one is she gives him the flowers, and he doesn't realize what else has happened when he appears to the Bishop Zumarraga. He doesn't realize what else happened miraculous on the tilma. And then finally, that is an image of his uncle, Juan Bernardino, and she appears to his uncle and heals him. So anyway, that's a little bit of the story of St. Juan Diego, which is in the church, but it's also in the retreat house. But the retreat house is Juan Diego, Our Lady of Guadalupe, but it's also this kind of emphasizing pilgrimage and Marian devotion in its broadest sense. I was trying to figure out, what do you do in a retreat house to make it different than a hotel? And I said to Cardinal Burke, well, that means like a retreat house would have like small, mean little rooms, not very comfortable. The heat doesn't work well. That would make a nice retreat house. He says, yes, that's what I don't want. So I was trying to figure this out, what to do to make it a proper retreat house that he would buy into. And he wanted it to be, he wanted to be a beautiful experience for people, for married couples, for for mothers, for pro-life retreat, for seminarians, for bishops, for canon lawyers. Why would they ever go on retreat? Kidding, but so I was trying to figure that out, and what we hit upon was the bedroom in a hotel is so crucial, but shouldn't it be something different in a retreat house? Could it be something different? And you spend time in a room in a retreat house, and it may be cold or wet outside or snowing or whatever, and you spend a lot of time in that room. So what should that room be? And so we came up with the idea that the room is an oratory. Each room is an oratory. We have 33 rooms. I don't know why that's a good number, but there's 33 rooms, and they each have an original altarpiece. And actually, the room will have a room number, but it'll also have it will have a name. So you'll stay in the Madonna room or the Visitation. It's the story of Our Lady and her son. So that's what you're looking at here from the sofa or the bed. That's what you see. And I wanted to have the Madonna disappear and have like a big flat screen TV, and he vetoed that. I really wanted that. I said, how do you watch the Packers? I mean, what are you going to do? No. And we're saving money by not having TVs and just having paintings. They're much cheaper. So, at any rate, level 2, we start with the Immaculate Conception, and then the Nativity of the Virgin, and then the Presentation of the Virgin, and so on. And then we'll have one artist do those 11 rooms, and then here's 2 of the images, 2 sketches. So we have all these artists working all at once right now. I have 10 artists, 50 works of art in this building, 50 works of art, all commissioned, and they all have to be great for the glory of God. So anyway, this is some early sketches of those 11 rooms, and then the next floor is the 4th floor above the main conference floor, and it's the public ministry of our Lord, his baptism, the wedding feast at Cana, etc., and ends with the raising of Lazarus from the dead. So one artist does that. We're trying to coordinate the artists so that the figures are about the same size. So like one person wanted to do, totally respectable, just torsos. Totally fine. But I want the whole 33 paintings to have a certain continuity. So I'm also demanding that they use my color palette and a certain kind of brush. No. But there's not a whole lot I'm demanding. But just to give a little coherence. We've done that before with artists, and that seems to be fine. And after they get over it, they do good work. They get over the fact that they're not in total control. They do good work. They do better work, maybe even. I don't know. What do I know? And then this is the artist doing that floor. This is just another work of his. And then the top floor, 5th, is the Passion and the Resurrection. And I just love this idea that if you stay there, where are you staying? You're staying on the 5th floor, the crowning with thorns. And so you're there for the weekend, you can meditate on the crowning of thorns. So I really don't want to do that. I'd rather go to Pentecost. Sorry, you're going to have the crowning of thorns. No, but you probably have a choice sometimes. And then here's the artist doing the top floor of paintings. The Agony in the Garden. So then you go up to the 6th floor, which is the terrace, has a beautiful view, and there's a place to sit. And when the weather is nice, which is very often in Wisconsin, you can sit outside. We actually have heaters up there, and we have canopy. But the main thing is we have another fireplace with an image, in this case, from the only what's the word, fathers? The only apparition that has been approved apparition, Our Lady of Champion in Wisconsin. Only approved apparition in the U.S., Our Lady of Champion, is in Wisconsin. So we have an image of her over the fireplace. And then I wanted to do something kind of special up there, and we had plenty of extra money. So I said, why don't we have 4 angels, and we'll make them bigger than life-size. We'll make them out of marble, and they'll have wings, and as if they can, fly down. One of them will have a sword in case we get into trouble. And so we have these 4 big angels that are looking out over the landscape, and that's something that I kind of stole from Tepeyac, because you have that in Tepeyac as you mount the hill. But anyway, you can see the guy on the left with the spear? Okay, you don't know who it is. Michael, thank you. And then there's the guy with the lily. And then there's the guy with the fish. Thank you, thank you. And then I don't know who that fourth guy is, but he might be the guardian angel. I don't know why he has a sword, actually. Should a guardian angel have a sword? He should? Okay, so there you go. All right, so that's a couple of different projects, and the way that we've tried to bring art, provide a home for the art, make a plan for the art, and what time is it? Okay, I'm over. Okay, and so this is a great image. Does anybody know this? Do the architects know this? The Professor's Dream, and it shows like the great works from Egypt through, modernity. You see all these great domes, Hagia Sophia and St. Paul's, and of course St. Peter's in the middle, and the Giza pyramids in the back, and all these great towers, French and English and so on. But it's by C.R. Cockerell, The Professor's Dream, the beauty of architecture, the greatness, the tradition, the great tradition. And don't you want one of your buildings to be in there, to be part of that, So what should we revive? The simple answer is the classical tradition, which changes and yet includes timeless truths. First of all, we need to have narrative, telling good stories through art. In this case, I believe that painting is easier than sculpture. Music is more articulate when it has words, Mark. Poetry, of course. Dance, drama, movies, and history. We need stories that turn our hearts to the good, the true, and the beautiful, the bonum, verum, and pulchrum. So we need to return to narrative. We need virtues rather than mere values, which have become watered down and personal taste. The ancient virtues, as well as their successors in the cardinal and theological virtues: prudence, justice, temperance, fortitude, plus faith, hope, and charity. Rather than simply defend against the muck, we will provide an alternative that builds people up. And then finally, the great tradition. Classicism and its daughters, the Romanesque, the Gothic, the Byzantine, the Art Deco. To practice the great tradition is to make it alive again, just as it has been revived time and time again. What do we need to do? Artists with different crafts and specialties. Who's an artist in this room? Of some sort? Or wants to be an artist? Looks like, what, about half of us? What do we need to do? Artists with different crafts and specialties. First, please be the best at what you do. But second, take a hint from the classical architect and in your own way provide a place for the others. How? This is my kind of final words to you guys. The ballerina should hire the architect to design her sets. My daughter did these sets for her sister. The sculptor should find a poet to write a description of his bas-relief. The musician should ask the architect to design a beautiful rehearsal hall. There he is. The painter should employ the sculptor to create his bust. This is Dana Gioia, and an opera that he did. The musician should hire the poet to write their libretto. I don't go to movies, so I'm sorry, Barbara. I'm not doing that. No, it's the same thing, right? It's the same deal. The artist should employ the architect to design her house, and try to pay them. This is my wife's house. We all need to embrace the full panoply of the arts, to read their poetry, to go to their concerts, to encourage your patrons to hire the other, and eat lunch together like we are today. The Beaux-Arts need each other. The good arts, the beautiful arts need each other because they are stronger when together. The ballet is better in the beautiful room. The music is better surrounded by paintings of virtues. The building is only Renaissance if it includes the other arts. Pulchritudo mundum salvabit. Beauty will save the world. Thank you.
I wanted to ask you something from the sort of earlier part of your lecture, which was that you were describing how a lot of things came together at the Columbian Exposition in 1893 and the building of the White City and all of that. And that sort of the beginning of the American Renaissance in terms of our cities, in terms of art, architecture, et cetera, is the result of a lot of people working together to achieve things, not just in Chicago, but also here, New York, Boston, San Francisco, et cetera. But there is a tension, I think, in American society, which you don't necessarily see so much in the European societies of the past that those men were trying to emulate, in the sense of Americans also like the rugged individualist who goes off on his or her own and does his or her own thing independent of what other people are doing. They don't necessarily want to be part of a movement. So how, if we're having a second American Renaissance, do we integrate, or maybe we don't, people who say, I want to be off over here. I have no problem with what you're doing, but I don't want to be a part of this. Is that something that we just have to accept as being part of the sort of American condition or the American sort of, experiment?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think the beauty of the Renaissance is that it has various ways of being expressed in different countries. And so I think probably, if we look at it, the American Renaissance here is different than the Italian Renaissance, and different than the Spanish Renaissance and the English Renaissance. So I totally buy that. And we are rugged individualists, and I think that's wrong. No. I think it's great. It's great. It gives us energy. We're still moving. We're still cruising. I tell my students that we're the greatest country in the world, and we're doing the most good right now, in spite of all the bad we're doing. Oh, did I say that? No. So I think that's really interesting. No, I think this is a big country, and there's room for a lot of stuff. A lot of people doing individual things. There's being in a monastery, being off in an airy, doing your own writing or your own work. We were talking last night about that amazing movie director, producer, designer. Yeah, Terrence Malick. Yeah. Who kind of is off on his own, doing his own thing, doesn't worry about money, doesn't worry about selling tickets, and yet he produces great works of art. So no, there's a lot of room for that, and I think that's why we see in general the greatest works, the most fertile work of classicism of art and architecture and music is happening in the U.S. more than other countries. We're leading the way, guys. We may not be perfect, maybe we could do more, but we have a lot more freedom in this country to do that than those other countries. So, at any rate, I think it's a great point, and I'm totally open to that, but I'd love to encourage people to see themselves as part of a renaissance and to participate and to support others as best you can.
Right, very good. Okay, do we have some questions in the room? I see a hand in the back, perhaps. Thank you.
Thank you. So I am fascinated by the idea of an American Renaissance in art, and I'd like to hear more of your thoughts, if you don't mind, on should it be specifically a Catholic revival? Should it, Catholic international revival versus an American, maybe Catholic plus secular revival? And also in the Catholic Church today, we have so many people who are being drawn towards the more traditional forms of things. And I think a large part of that is because of the beauty of those things. And but how can we provide a fresh take that's an alternative to pulling out the old Baroque or Mannerist art? And also, what would be specifically American about our interpretation of the classical ideals? Thank you.
Yeah, well, you just asked 5 things, and I don't know 4 of them. But all good points. Yeah, no, I think it's a renaissance. And don't tell the German art historians, but the original Italian Renaissance was Catholic. Don't tell anybody else that I said that, but and the German art historians who tried to tell you it was pagan or whatever, secular. No, it was totally a Catholic Renaissance. But of course, my argument is we want to be in culture, and we want to help culture out. So we want to be doing museums and theaters and concert halls and libraries and all these things, and speaking to the broader culture and the non-Catholic culture, the non-Christian culture, everyone, and to bring them all into the beauty and truth and goodness. So, yeah. Now, individual architects or artists may not have the calling to do all that, but we need you guys to be involved in lots of things in culture. That's what I'm trying to say. We need you to be involved in everything. And I know that Barbara Nicolosi doesn't agree with this, but but because she thinks that like baseball players can only be Catholic or Protestant. No, but it's that idea that you play well, you play your game really well, and you do things really well. But we need you to be involved in all of those things. And that's what I'm interested in, even though my main thrust has been working for the Catholic Church.
Where's my guess? This table seems particularly chatty. Thank you. Sir.
Thank you for, I love that vision of the architecture as the mother of the arts, and the stained glass has an interesting relationship in that because it does have a utility to it.
That's true.
To bring light in certain ways. So I was wondering, in architecture, when would be a good time for bringing stained glass into the conversation because it has a role in the movement of light as well.
I totally agree with you. And what I think is so interesting about stained glass being essentially medieval development, but it kept going, right? It didn't stop. We didn't stop it. Say, the Gothic's over, let's get rid of that. Although, St. Peter's doesn't have that much stained glass in it. But it becomes part of our tradition. And it's a development, and it can tell stories. It can be decorative. I think there's a place for stained glass to be brought into other kinds of buildings than churches.
Yeah. Yep.
I'm totally for that, whether it's ceilings or windows, or there's a fantastic building that Richard Driehaus bought, which is the Society of Surgeons in Chicago, and it's right up against an alley. So behind the wall, they could have had a solid wall or a painting, but they put a big stained glass window there. And all symbolic of surgery and, bones and blood and guts. No, but, the noble part of surgery. And it's a wonderful thing. So I'm all for it. I'm all for bringing all of these things in. And stained glass is part of it. And it takes craft and it takes art, and it does, you're right, it's one of the arts that has has a function as part of it, which is very interesting. And thank you.
Yeah, from your point, let me riff off what the young lady said, which is that this is actually a very American thing, because if you think of people like Tiffany and Lafarge and so on, who are some of the greatest stained glass artists to have ever existed, that we know their names and we know what they did, and they're Americans.
Yeah.
And they're Americans from, a century ago. So there's no reason why there can't be buildings, secular or sacred, that are integrating just like they did. They would do a church, but they would also do a concert hall, or the White House. Not that James is here today. That we need a stained glass screen, you know, at the top of the stairs, like kind of divide the public,
Yeah.
and the, you know, that Tiffany did for it was for Teddy Roosevelt, I think,
Yeah.
didn't he do? We have a tradition of that in this country.
Yeah.
That is an American Renaissance
That's
thing
good.
that we have a long history of doing well here that doesn't come from Europe. It's the technique comes from there, or even the ancient
Yeah.
Egyptians, but you know, so that's to your particular craft, I think that's something that we can do. The young man next to you had a question. Thank you.
I was wondering if you could speak to the tension of when you're starting a huge project, like the feeling of that, like the pressure that a project brings, and not being able to start it because you're afraid that you might not be able to meet the high vision you have for your work, or that, like, I don't know if you can speak to getting over that hump, and if you've experienced that at all.
Probably. Yeah, the tension of the high standards. I think that's right. So the thing about classicism is, if you want to do art and you want to do architecture and you don't want to work too hard, you want to have a nice life, don't be a classicist. It's a lot better not to be a classicist. You can do whatever you want.
That's right.
They'll pay you. You can tell people will tell you did a great job, all that kind of stuff. No, the point of classicism is a little bit like trying to be a Catholic, and we measure ourselves by other people. We
Yes.
measure our work by the saints, if you're a Christian, and you measure your work as an architect by other buildings.
Yeah.
And there's not just one building, like the saints, there's many buildings. So that's right, there's high standards, and we measure ourselves by that. And I actually believe that I want to be as good as, fill in the blank, Palladio, McKim, you know, Charles Pope. I don't think I've ever have been. That's okay. But, you know, it's that funny thing of, if you try hard, if you shoot higher, you might actually get somewhere.
Right. Yeah.
And I think that's true, that the higher standards will produce better work. But again, if you don't want to work too hard, I suggest don't be a classicist. It's much easier to
Yeah.
just tell yourself that you're innovative, creative, and so on, and nobody's ever
go-
seen it before. And,
Exactly.
you know,
Yeah.
and that's what most of us live, most architects and artists live in, that delusion, and it's a great delusion, and you should also take drugs, you know? It's really much a better life, much easier.
Well, it's all about impermanence, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, everything that, you know, Nish Kapoor and all these, you know,
Yeah.
garbage architects do, like it's all designed to fail.
Yeah.
It's not designed to last. It's not designed to speak to, you know, it's not designed to last, because it's not about anything that lasts. It's about impermanence, you know, so.
Amen.
anyway. Other side of the room, everyone's kind of quiet over here today. Sir, could we get the, oh, thank you, you're closer.
That's the sign language side of the hall.
So this is more of a technical question. You brought up as an example the San Francisco Opera House. I had the privilege of having season tickets there for a long time.
Wow.
But the architect Arthur Brown Jr. also did the City Hall 17 years earlier, and in quite a different style. And I wonder if you could comment on that in relation to your own work. Do you see your own work evolving in that way?
Yeah, I'm thinking about, in about 20 years, becoming glass and steel. But I have to master classicism first, and then I can go on.
So that you can reject.
No, of course, we develop, and I think I think the young lady who talked about the American side of it, these are all good points, and I probably could give a lecture on like American classicism and how it's different, or American architecture, and you know, architects develop. I mean, you know, like for instance, here's an example some of you guys have ever heard of. There was Washington, Adams, and then the third guy. And he wrote a few things, and he was also an amateur architect. He wanted so much. He wrote to Colonel Koch. He said, in architecture, Palladio is the Bible, okay, which meant the book of Palladio, the 4 books of architecture. And he wanted so much to do Palladio in Virginia and in Washington, D.C., and he did as much as he could, and he did a design for the White House, which was really silly, and it looks like the Villa Rotunda. It would have been great. But anyway, he was trying to do Palladio in the New World. And yet, everything that Jefferson looks like, Europeans come here and say, wow, that's really interesting. It's very American, you know, it's very...
Yeah.
So, it doesn't mean it's better, it's just American. So, but there's no question, Arthur Brown develops. and the Opera House he develops from the City Hall. I do think it kind of works together though, beautifully. You know, he's a talented guy. Probably you'd see that like at Yale with James Campbell Rogers. He did 12 of the colleges and the law school and the graduate school over like 20 years. And he develops quite a bit. And there's simplicity and there's Georgian and there's Gothic and there's all this. So I think that's part of what we do. And I think it's good and it's natural. I don't think a lot of us worry about it too much. We just kind of keep going. I personally think that Arthur Brown is one of the greatest American architects. Yeah. He's the greatest West Coast architect, although Julia was good. They were classmates, you know, by the way, first woman to go to the École de Beaux-Arts. But I think Arthur Brown is the greatest West Coast architect, and I think his building is the second best building in the Federal Triangle, the Interdepartmental Auditorium. It's a knockout, just a knockout. Like, the other guys are good, he blows them away. So if you don't know Arthur Brown, go to San Francisco, see his City Hall there in the Opera House, and go get season tickets, and also see the Interdepartmental Auditorium here. Also, if you want something more humble, go to Pasadena City Hall. Wow. It is Spanish, the most sophisticated Spanish in our country. And so, no, it's really good. I mean, I hope that I can become a better architect before I die, can do a good building, but it takes time. That's the other thing. Classicism also takes a long time to learn, so if you want to, like the young man that wanted to know how to be Mel Gibson, doing it, directing The Next Passion, don't be a classicist. Do something more fun and go right, dive right in.
I will say of your work, have any of you been to Hillsdale to see, the scale of that, because I gave a lecture there in February, and, and I was not where I met your very kind daughter who sat through my lecture without falling asleep. And I said to my hosts, I said, oh, Duncan likes a Diocletian window, because you do. Because when you're, and I have not been to the Shrine of Our Lady, but in the new part, I see that you're working in a Diocletian window here and there, and I'm like, I don't know if that's your signature.
I guess it is.
But it's noticeable in your work that you like it, that you like the effect that it provides and the balance that it provides and so on. And so to the point that was made, you can actually start to sort of see how things develop over time, because, you know, a great architect like this will try something and be like, oh, that works. And, you know, maybe on the next one I might try this a little bit differently.
Definitely.
You know, so,
Keep going with it. But if it works, let's keep going with it. We don't have to throw it out necessarily.
Yes. Well, thank you, sir.
Thank you.